The Mercury Grand Marquis is the luxury version of the Crown Victoria Police Interceptor. Well, this Chevy Caprice PPV has a luxury version too, and it's called the Holden Caprice. That Holden Caprice is made in Australia, and it was sold in its home market as a top-tier luxury car to compete against the likes of BMW and Mercedes. Strangely though, that Holden Caprice got exported to South America and the Middle East, but rebadged as a Chevy Caprice. But the Chevy Caprice luxury version never made it to North America. A viewer in Australia named Matt owns a Holden Caprice, and he made a video recently and sent it to me to highlight the differences between the Holden Caprice and the Chevy Caprice PPV. So I want to give a special thanks to Matt for sharing that video. I thought it was super cool that you got your kids involved, and well, let's take a look at Matt's car.
The reason why I'm doing this video is Chris over there in Delaware had the Chevy Caprice PPV vehicle, and I made contact with him and thought I'd just show him what the Australian Caprice is like. So I've got my little helpers here today. I've got helper number 1, Angus.
Hello.
And number 2 behind the camera is little Molly. This is a Holden Caprice. It's the long wheelbase version of the Holdens. Big difference with the PPV in the US is that was built as a workhorse. This is a luxury car. Mine's what they call a WN series, and this one was built in September 2014. A year later, in September 2015, the WN Series 2 came out. The big difference there is they went to a 6.2 litre, where this is the 6 litre, and on the rear, what we call the boot, they had a little spoiler as well, and the quad exhaust pipes became dual exhaust pipes, so that was the big difference there. And as I said, it's a luxury car, so as far as prices go, the recommended retail price in 14 for this was $60,490, and as an example, the average Australian wage at the time I think was around $75,000. So they were good value, but they were still a luxury car. So one of the main reasons I'm doing this is to show North Americans the differences between the Holden Caprice, where it was born and how it was produced here, and then what you guys ended up with the Chevy Caprice PPV. And while we were here last night because I knew that the kangaroos would be out, so we got a couple of good still photos of the kangaroos. While I'm here today, I'll see if we can go find some as well. Where we are is a town of 40,000 people, so you're not going to have the kangaroos right in town, but we're just on the edge of it, and we're in the middle of a drought at the moment, so there's a fair bit of wildlife movement on the sides of roads, and it's not a good time to be driving, particularly dawn and dusk when they're on the hop, literally. Okay, so straight up externally, looking at Chris's video there, big things are this car comes with fog lights at the front. In all honesty, I found them quite ineffective, but they're down low in that front bumper. Standard with the alloy wheels. The headlights as well have a washer jet or function within them, and that comes on if you're using the windscreen washer for 2 seconds or more and travelling with the headlights on. It'll clean the headlights at the same time. Another difference I picked up there is in that front quarter panel, we've got the LED turn indicators, where they don't seem to have them in the PPV vehicles, and I'm probably sure that we've got a few more sort of courtesy lights. There's one underneath the side view mirror there, and there's one in the door, and they call it a puddle lamp, so as you open the door it illuminates the area underneath. And then of course inside it's got all the bits and pieces, leather seats, heated as well, and a whole bunch of features which I'd imagine the PPV didn't come with. The other thing with this car is it did come with, all these Caprices came with a sunroof, which for a taller person I was a bit unsure about, because I've always found that a sunroof steals a bit of headroom, but as we know, they're massive cars. I've got more than enough leg room and enough headroom, so very comfortable cruiser. Another thing you might have picked up, in the front of the car, in that lower air intake, I've got a couple of little black whistles, and supposedly they can scare kangaroos away, so something a bit unusual that you definitely wouldn't have in the US, but I've seen a similar whistle sold here with the description of deer whistle, so probably made in the same factory in China. They sell them to Australia as kangaroo whistles, in the US for deer, but Prior to that, I did actually hit a kangaroo on the very first night I owned this car. It just hit below my passenger side fog lamp, either with its tail or paw. Left a bit of a mark, but I escaped pretty well. So I bought this private sale. Had about 55,000 kilometres. And now I've got about 58,000 Ks. In your video, Chris, you talk about I think 15,800 sales from Australia to the US between 11 and 2017. I was just having a look on the Wikipedia, which someone put there in the comments, and I think around 2014 they were only selling 1,500 of these a year in Australia. So we're a completely different market to the US, but we're very small volumes ourselves. And by the time it came round to this model here, the WN, there were only two engine choices: the 6-litre petrol V8, or what you would call gas V8, and the other motor was the 3.6-litre V6, and ours wasn't petrol, it was LPG, or liquefied petroleum gas. It's a pretty common, well, it's not a common fuel source. I'd say that probably maybe 1 in 6 fuel stations carry it. It's compressed gas. You have, I had a car in 2003 that had it, and you end up with about 20% less power, and as a result, you had to use more gas to go a certain distance. But the great benefit was when I first got my car in 03, that was on gas. The gas price was only 50 cents a litre, where petrol was up around $1.20 at the time. I think it had skyrocketed. So even at the moment in Australia, petrol is about $1.45 Australian where I live for a litre, and gas is 86 cents a litre. So it was cheaper gas previously because the federal government tariffs were less. As far as who uses these cars, again in the comments there I saw someone saying that our Prime Minister has one, or at this stage he used to have it. I believe now he's got a BMW because Holden no longer make them. So 2017 Holden stopped production. But the Prime Minister used to travel in Caprice, and it would have C1 as the number plate, so Commonwealth 1. So a lot of politicians would be ferried around in the white Caprices. I'm out here in the Central West, one of the cooler areas in Australia, and as you can see it's 4 degrees, 10:38, so we are sitting in the shade here, but quite cool for Australia for the winter. The WN Caprice, or actually Caprices were produced from 2006 to 2017, and they basically didn't change appearance. They went from that 6-litre to the 6.2 in 15. A few cosmetic changes with wheels and the rest as they go along, but the actual body shape didn't change. And initially, when they produced them, there was the Statesman nameplate and the Caprice. So the Statesman was a lesser trim level, same looking or similar looking vehicle, and the Caprice was the more luxury one. And I believe they dropped the Statesman nameplate in 2010, and then you could only just buy the Caprice V as an option then. And for a long time there, when it came to luxury Australian cars, the two luxury cars were the Holden Statesman / Caprice and the Ford Fairlane/LTD. So both long wheelbase vehicles. Both of them came with V8 options and just comfortable cruisers that chewed up the kilometres, very easy to travel in. Another car you can purchase is what's called Holden Special Vehicles Grange. So they took a Caprice, they tricked it up as far as the motor, and they gave it a slightly different appearance as well. So Grange is a fine South Australian red wine. Now, one other difference as well I've noticed is US cars, I believe you call them running lights. So front and rear, when you look at the side of a vehicle, you'll have a visible, say, orange light at the front and the red light at the back. We don't have that requirement here, so our lights always look a little bit different. Similar, well, ours has got, this car has the LED tail lights, but then it's halogen indicators, halogen reverse lights, LED side indicators, and as I said, it did have halogen parkers. I've replaced them with the LED and bi-xenon low beam, which I find is quite an effective light. Okay, so this is the engine that we have in the Holden Caprice. It's the 6 litre V8, and as Chris pointed out, the difference with the PPV is they don't have that plastic cover on top that just neatens up the appearance. Another thing I found is I looked in the owner's manual for the power output of this motor, and being metric, all our measurements are in metric, so they're kilowatt, not horsepower. But it then said refer to the Holden website to get the power. You go to the Holden website because this is no longer made. I couldn't find it. They didn't mention it. But then I went to Wikipedia, and I found on Wikipedia there that the power for this was 260 kilowatt and 517 newton meters of torque. If you convert 260 kilowatt, you get 350 horsepower, which you described your car as having 355 horsepower. I don't know if that's some sort of conversion difference there and rounding up benefit and the rest, or maybe the US car did have an extra 5 horsepower. So one good feature with the Caprice is it's got a remote start, so if you hit the door close button and then you hold this button here for 2 seconds, it'll automatically start. So on the fuel cap there, it tells you that you can use up to 85% ethanol fuel. In the state I'm in, New South Wales, it's pretty rare to find an E85, but generally the cheapest fuel you'll buy will be E10, so it's got 10% ethanol, 90% petrol. Look, I've only had this car about 3 months now, so I'm still getting used to a few of the features, but I'll go over some of the features I'm aware of. Here in the door we've got just a door lock and unlock, mirror controls left and right. You've got the remote controls for the windows, and then you can prevent the windows from being opened. You've got what you would call trunk release, but is boot release for us. And the other good thing we do have here is the presets for personalisation of the vehicle as far as seating, so it'll set your seat to position it once, and I think it even does the side view mirrors as well. The leather seat, controls on the side there. We've got the headlight controls here with the fog lights in the middle there. This button here increases, decreases the intensity of the dash lights. It's got a head-up display. I never had a car with a head-up display, really like it. So that'll alter the angle of it, and that's the intensity of the head-up display. You've got your steering wheel controls. That's what our dash looks like in our version. And then the centre console with the audio, aircon controls down there, and gear lever. Electronic park brake. I think I might have seen in yours it wasn't electronic. And we've got a parking assist and traction control button there.